When it was announced that Dame was headed to Milwaukee to team up with the Greek Freak, it was almost universally believed that they would be favorites to win the championship that year. But that wouldn't happen. The Celtics would be world champions last year, and as for the Bucks, the Pacers would end up being too much for them in round one. Last season for the Bucks would be headlined by injuries, coaching changes, an overall lack of chemistry, and an out-of-shape Damian Lillard. It was a nasty season for a team with great expectations, but as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. But while it wasn't built in a day, there was still notable progress being made every day. And that's the thing. Last year could have easily become an afterthought if the Bucks were showing any sort of life to start this year. Instead, the Bucks have played so poorly that their worst nightmare is on the verge of happening. But first, despite my Pelicans being decimated by injury, this has still been an incredibly fun season for me, thanks to me having a ton of fun on Underdog. For those of you who don't know, Underdog is the best way to play daily fantasy. With Underdog, just decide if you're going higher or lower on a projection. Do this 2 to 8 times and you can 1,000 times your money. Hey, I told you guys that it was easy, right? Now when you guys click the link in the description to sign up, make sure to use my code COOP, because with code COOP, you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash along with the free pick. And it's a great way to support the channel. Thank you, Underdog, for the sponsor. When Giannis Antetokounmpo scores 37 points, grabs 11 rebounds, and dishes out 4 assists, all while only missing 5 shots, you would think that the Milwaukee Bucks trashed their opponent. But against the Memphis Grizzlies, that definitely would not be the case. Not only did the Milwaukee Bucks not win, they would get blown out. Against the Grizzlies, the Bucks would lose by 23 points as they added yet another L to their miserable record to start the year. The Bucks are 66-24 when Giannis scores over 35 points in his career, meaning that when he does this, they're typically pretty good. But no matter how good of a game that Giannis has, it's always going to be hard to get the W when a poorly constructed roster has no fight in it and his superstar co-star that he was supposed to be breaking the league with is only able to muster 4 points out of the entire game as they shoot 1 of 12 from the field. Now, losing when it's just Giannis cooking is one thing. Losing when both of your stars are cooking means that it's time to hit that panic button if you haven't already. Literally, the next game, Giannis would go off against the Cavs. He'd come up just 1 assist shy of a triple-double, 34 points on 15 of 27 from the field, 16 rebounds, and 9 assists. That's what Giannis would drop. Meanwhile, Dame would go for 41 points on 13 of 24 from the field, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists. This game, Dame would tie the Bucks franchise record for threes, hitting 10 of the 15 threes that he took. But even this historic performance from Dame and joint effort altogether wouldn't be enough for a Bucks victory. What do you do when both of your stars are going off, but the roster around those stars is so bad that it doesn't even matter? And forbid that Giannis or Dame miss significant time, because then things would be even uglier than they already are. It doesn't even need to be said at this point, but the Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo pairing have not been yielding the results that the Bucks have expected upon pairing them together. And some of the things that we've seen leading up to this point should be enough to worry any Bucks fan. When Dame first came to Milwaukee, Giannis said that Dame would be the Bucks leader and that the Bucks would be his team. But early on in Milwaukee, that wouldn't be the case, as Dame would struggle to find any level of consistent comfort with Giannis. Just a few games ago, the man would admit this himself.
Because, I mean, my entire career, I've always been somebody who, like, if I can do one thing, I can take over. I can take over a game. And, I think I've joined a new team and the situation is different. And I understand it is different, so I have to try to, find a way to not just go back to what I've always done, because it's probably not always necessary, or probably not necessary at all. So I think that's probably the most difficult part, is like when things seem like it's getting out of control or the going is getting tough, I'm able to put my hands on it a little bit more. And I think just not really being in that role is, it's a little bit more difficult. It's more of a process to figure out for me.
To add to this, Dame has also said that this duo needs to be able to hold each other accountable. To quote him, "Me and Tim gotta be able to hold each other accountable. And I don't mean yelling at each other all of the time. I just mean like I gotta be able to say something to you, and you gotta be able to say something to me at all times." He's always had to put his foot down in Milwaukee and kind of lead the charge and be kind of like the man to push it forward. And I've always been that way in Portland. And I think now that we're together, we both gotta look over and say, this is a top 75 player too, and I gotta trust him to carry this with me. I think we both gotta do that. After that, we got a shot. We got a shot. So let's get this straight. Dame and Giannis haven't even been trusting each other at the level that superstars should. And beyond that, Dame straight up said that he hadn't even been feeling comfortable enough in Milwaukee to consistently take over games even after spending a full season together. Guys, that is crazy, because the Milwaukee Bucks didn't trade a defensive superstar in Drew Holiday for an offensive superstar in Damian Lillard so that Dame could come to Milwaukee and not take over games. The Bucks saw what Dame was doing in Portland, being one of the most diverse and prolific scorers in the game. They saw him average 32.2 points and 7.3 assists ahead of trading for him. When they traded for him, they envisioned that deep range magic that he brought to Portland being taken to a new level, playing alongside one of the most dominant slashers in the league's history. But so far, we've only seen flashes of that. What we've seen consistently is the lack of chemistry on display, and it's been bad. A lot of times, it has seemed like Giannis doesn't even want to give Dame a real screen, which sucks for the Bucks, because the Bucks want to consistently see more of this kind of magic from this duo, where they're playing off of each other's greatness. Though Giannis and Dame talked regularly this offseason, it sucks that these two couldn't even find the time to work out together during it, because it was evident last season that they could have used more reps for this one. And what's tough for the Bucks is that they couldn't have picked the worst coaching staff to try to figure this whole thing out. They put Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham on one bench. What did they expect to happen? Here's a reminder that first-year head coach Adrian Griffin was 30-13 before getting one of the quickest hooks in history. Not only are the Bucks not on a 30-13 pace, they are on pace to finish as one of the worst teams in the entire league. Coming into this season, Giannis said that if the Bucks didn't win a championship, that he might get traded. As things stand, the Bucks might not even make the playoffs. Of course, I'm only joking, as the Bucks should seriously make the playoffs if they want to. But let's talk about Giannis teasing this trade coming into this season. Historically, when Giannis has done something like this, a huge move has followed. But the Bucks are currently low on assets, and they're one of 4 teams over the second apron, meaning that if this Giannis and Dame pairing ends up not working out, they might be left with no other choice but to tear it down. Basically, the Bucks are a really expensive team who missed on a lot of their cap saving in between the margins moves and are now faced with a bad roster as a result. Now, while it's early in the season and there's still plenty of time to turn this whole thing around, the Sharks have started to smell blood in the water. Reportedly, one Western Conference team executive said that teams are circling and hopeful, and a top executive of a team in the mix said that he wouldn't be surprised if a trade happened by the deadline. And check this out. A different Eastern Conference executive said that the Heat and Nets are expected to be among his preferred landing spots if a trade were to happen. I would find it hilarious if Giannis were the one who ended up being traded to the Heat after all of this, but you know who wouldn't find it hilarious? Dame. Now, an NBA insider also believes that a Giannis to the Warriors trade is worth monitoring. This insider would say that we know that the Warriors owner has had dreams of Giannis coming to the Warriors for a very long time. The Warriors are off to a hot start, one that might entice them to compile as many assets as possible in an attempt to make a competitive offer for Giannis in an effort to maximize those final years of Steph. The basketball fan in me loves the sound of Steph, Giannis, a bunch of shooters, a good defense, and a coach like Kerr who will run a motion offense. But the realist in me completely understands that if Giannis really does become available, that we are going to see some crazy offers. What's stopping a team like OKC, who has too many assets and is already elite, from just saying, screw it, let's go wreck the league? They have so many assets that I could see them doing something disgusting, like trading for Giannis just so that nobody else gets him. Now, if the Bucks really did want to tear this whole thing down, then one of the first places that I would start if I were them is trying to get this year's first round pick back from the New Orleans Pelicans and the Brooklyn Nets. If the pick lands in the top 4, then it goes to my New Orleans Pelicans. And if it lands outside of the top 4, then it goes to Brooklyn. Bucks fans, how are you feeling about this whole situation? Are you looking to recoup assets and your pick and go for flag? Or are you looking to make the most of the time that Giannis has left in Milwaukee? Let me know down in the comments below. Anyways guys, there's some more going on in the NBA right now that I need to be covering. Clicking the video on the screen right now and using code COOP for Underdog are both great ways to support this channel. I'm GetLikeCoop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.